get back to me. Welcome, everyone. Oh my gosh, you know what? Firstly, let's say thank you to you for investing your evening. It's going to be smashing, I can promise you that now, but I do want to say thank you for showing up. My name is Sonia Barlow and I will be your host for today. A little bit about me, I'm an entrepreneur, author and presenter, and I am obsessed with technology. So when LTX Studio and Livestream came my way, I was like, do you really have something special to offer? And trust me, they do, because I played around with it all weekend, and now I think I'm a storyteller. You will also find out what that product's doing and what you can do with it at the end, so please stay tuned. We're here to celebrate groundbreaking innovation and evolution, and the next chapter of creative storytelling with LTX Studio. We have inspiring lineup of speakers who selfishly, I host stages so I can also meet and learn from them. So I know that you are going to love what they have to say, and we are going to hear from Livestream's team about the good, the bad, and the brilliant when it came to making the LTX Studio. I also want us to remember that it's not just us in the room, even though the room is packed, so thank you. We also have people joining online, so welcome and thank you also for investing your time wherever you are in the world. And thank you, Lauren, because I can see you in New York or Australia, I can't remember where you are, but you have been a great help during this time. What makes this evening even more special is that this is the first time we're going to be talking about this in London. So you really are here for the launch. So if you're taking pictures, videos, remember to tag, like, share, and really introduce LTX Studio into the world. So before we start talking to the team and talking to the panelists, I want us to watch this teaser video that the team have produced for you so that we can really introduce LTX Studio to London. So thank you.
3, 2, 1, action!
LTX Studio understands what I do, and being able to use it, I get to be a better filmmaker.
And cut!
We launched a first-of-its-kind activity, asking our LTX Studio community members to pitch concepts for 3 categories: LTX Studio ad, a short film, and a music video. We received hundreds of amazing ideas, but 3 caught our eye the most. So we let them know they received $150,000 each and an entire film crew to make it real.
Action!
Matt the Pen Allen. Winning concept, I want to direct. Day job, professional screenwriter.
Everyone wants to direct. That's what my commercial is about. It's about how everyone using LTX Studios can now be their own director for their own content.
And then we hear cut and we see that the stunt woman has been directing the scene with all our characters around her.
They should get me to direct.
Yeah, I could direct.
Yeah, I could direct.
Most of my writing time is making pitch decks, just trying to sell what I've done. And like this tool makes it so easy to show your vision.
You can spend like a week on making a pitch deck, right? It's just very time consuming. And with LTX Studio, this process is entirely different. It now takes just a few hours producing a more accurate result. Let's take a look at the storyboard inside the LTX platform.
One of the things that I really appreciate about this product is all the different ways you can start a project. So for features, a lot of times I'll just drag and drop an entire feature script into this program and have it start doing the storyboarding process.
3, 2, 1, action!
Virginia the Mindbender Goodwin. Short film winning concept, Winged. Day job, neuropsychologist.
We're making a film about a group of doctors trying to figure out what to do with a flying head. Your story is unbelievable, it's amazing.
Well, it's actually a dream that I had when I was 13.
One facet of LTX Studios that I'm really excited about is style reference. The AI automatically understands your style. It'll re-render the entire concept for you if you want it to.
Wow, look at that. Oh my God.
Isn't that good? My job is about communication, communicating to the actors, to the crew, communicating my vision to distributors and studios. Being able to use LTX for that process, there's no guesswork. It just frees you up to really take your vision to the next level.
Manny the Visionary Walker, music video winning concept, Shadow of the Moon, day job, filmmaker, and AI alchemist.
My story is essentially about men's quest for meaning in the universe. We're going to see two astronauts traveling the universe together. Exploration is essentially what humans have been doing their entire existence.
It's a journey, it's a spiritual journey, because more like a metaphorical kind of a journey.
Time is extremely valuable in our industry. LTX Studio generates 4 motion previews in real time, while its competitors take over a minute to render a single video. This really speeds up the process and streamlines your creative workflow. And what's even more amazing is creating these kind of visuals in a 3D software would take you days. Now we're generating them in LTX in a few seconds in 4K resolution.
We're storytellers, and I think Lightrix gives us really the tools to, to experiment with our ability to tell a better story.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
LTX Studio. Join the waitlist now. Access is being granted daily.
So, my first question is, who wants access? Isn't that right? Well, you might have to stay till the end, and then there'll be some networking nibbling as well. Before we get onto the panelists and really to explore more about the studio, I want to invite the team on. So if you could give a big round of applause to Zeb, who is the CEO, and Alon, who is the VP of Product, on stage. Wow, you just jumped right in, right? So before we begin, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. So, Alon, who are you and what do you do at Lightrix? Big question, I understand it's worldly, but you've got 27 minutes.
Is it working, by the way? Yeah.
Is it working? Yeah, absolutely.
Who am I? I'm a father.
Congrats.
The cutest boy. And in Lightrix, I'm the VP product for LTX Studio. I'm a former VFX artist, so I'm used to work on the more creative side of things, and then I moved on to study computer science and engineering. So I'm kind of combining both. And here at Lightrix and LTX Studio, I'm just taking it to the next level. I think I combine both of my passions, so that's me.
Well, thank you for being here. And Zeb, what about yourself? What is your history, and how are you related to Lightrix?
Okay, so that I need to think about, what's my relationship to Lightrix? Prior to Lightrix, I spent a lot of time in academia. My PhD was somewhere on the border between computer graphics and image processing, and I spent some time in the industry working in the research department of Microsoft and Adobe, so I kind of know the professional tool-making business kind of from that perspective as well. And I started to polish pixels, I guess, since I was 9 years old. That was the first time that I wrote a basic program that created a circle on the screen. And frankly, that was the most exciting project so far, and LTX Studio is the first one that was that.
Well, thank you for sharing. So for many of us, before I jump into your questions, I'd love to know who's in the room with us. So can you put your hand up if you're a storyteller? If you're a creator? If you are a business person, as in you own your own business? If you work in corporate? If you were told to come here because someone got your ticket or you know one of the team members? Everyone in the back, thank you for your honesty. The reason I ask that question is because we like to humanize the experience, but also it's really important for the team to know who they're addressing and who they're talking to. So Zeb, my first question is to you. Who are Lightrix and what is your history?
So I mentioned the Adobe part. When we started the company and we were a big founding team of kind of 5 friends, most of us were doing our PhD in the computer science, doing research in kind of related areas. We actually look at Adobe as a kind of inspiration. It was more than 10 years ago when mobile was a new thing, and I think our vision was to basically create an Adobe of mobile, a company that democratizes creativity and brings it to everyone on their mobile devices. And most of what we were doing since we started the company, actually creating mobile content creation tools. Our biggest brands are Facetune, Videoly, Photolib, but we released like many more products. Now we got to a point where with all the disruption that happens in the world of AI, we decided that it's kind of time for us to start catering to more professional audience as well.
And may you share your vision and your mission with us?
Yeah, so like as I mentioned, the way we kind of think about democratizing creativity is trying to get to a point where you can bridge the gap between imagination and creation, right? Like a lot of us sometimes are seeing some kind of vision in our head into this or that degree of kind of fidelity, and sometimes we have a hard time to express this vision because it can be technically hard and challenging. It may require significant budgets that we not necessarily have an access to. And our mission is to bridge this gap. We want to make sure that if you have a compelling vision, a compelling story to tell, you want to bring the tools to do just that.
And so, based on your commercial, I could be a director. That's what you were telling me. I can add that to my book. And the multi-hyphens that I have.
Yes, you can, Sonia.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for. Yes, we all can, actually. How does LTX Studio fit with that larger vision and strategy? And I also ask that because you're a visionary yourself, right? You co-founded the business, you're the CEO, you clearly love polishing pixels.
That I do.
So what does that mean in practicality?
So it's like the genesis of LTX Studio, I would say, started somewhere like 2.5, like roughly years ago. I don't know, guys, if you remember like this, I think like pivotal moment in time where somewhere, I think around like summer of 2022, a Gen AI architecture got to a maturity that I think stunned most of us, right? Like we acquired a company based in Chicago where the founder was part of the Y Combinator, like one of the big startup accelerators in the world, and he knows Sam Altman from OpenAI from there, and he messaged us, listen guys, like you need to get access to like this new thing, like it's called like DALL-E, like it's like really something special. You have to see it, and OpenAI guys sent an access to our CTO, Yaron, and typically Yaron is very kind of disciplined guy, never talks during management meetings, but then during this meeting, he's listen, like you have to see it, you have to see it. So we went outside, like a bunch of people, including Daniel, our chief product officer, a bunch of our guys. We were like sitting outside in our company's restaurant. We started to play with it, and I think all of us were just like stunned. Like a lot of people inside Lightrix, inside other companies, were playing with Gen AI system before it, but the best they could create were like avocado chairs, right? And it was like really cool technically, but it was where it stopped. And like with DALL-E and then with what Stability guys released, it was clear that it's like really a pivotal moment that the entire paradigm of how we think about content creation is about to change. And what we did initially, we started to add a lot of AI features into our existing products, into Photolib, Videoly, Facetune, etc. But at some point, we realized that obviously there is something bigger on the table. You can start thinking about products that are going to be built from ground up with AI. And what happened at Lightrix is that we had two completely different teams, like task forces, tackling two different issues. Like one of them that was spearheaded by our VP of Creative Marketing, Omer, tried to actually create an internal tool for storyboarding where I think like Omer's idea was basically to save some budget. He wanted to see that his designers are actually committing to ideas that make sense before he's signing on checks. So I think that's how it started. But when he kind of presented this idea to me, it was like this kind of vision of the forest and the haunted house and the man that was kind of lost there. Like, to me, it was like this wow moment. I just like, couldn't believe that this tool like so easy to create such things. Another task force was tackling a very different problem. They tried to see if we could merge ideas from kind of a classical graphical 3D pipeline to what happens like with diffusion models, right? Like that power all these like pixels that you're going to see on the screen here, because some things are like still extremely challenging for AI, right? For example, when you're wanting to create like some kind of a video and you want to precisely control the camera, this thing is still extremely hard. And for classical 3D pipeline, to position a camera, to move it in space, that's like the basic of every 3D software, like Blender or Maya. So the idea was to test if we can kind of merge two of this paradigm together and kind of to give more control. So these guys also were able to show very compelling results. And over time, we realized, wait a second, these are not two different ideas. There's like something completely new on the table, this idea that you can start with the high-level concept, help AI to kind of flesh out this idea into a script and then to scenes and shots, and then you can kind of generate the video, etc. So that was the genesis of LTX Studio, kind of two completely different ideas at some point.
I love that, but you know what it is? I think you're taking Alon's part. And I think we have to bring him into this conversation because he's sitting there being like, that's what I wanted to get involved with. So Alon, it says that you have one platform that can do it all.
Right.
Let's unpack that tagline. Can it really do it all?
You tell me, Sonia. You got access last week, no?
Well, I now think that I'm a director. I'm creating my stories in the background.
I think it is. I mean, of course, it's going to be a long journey for LTX Studio. It's just the beginning. But yeah, we are tackling all the different components that it takes to make a video, from image making to video generation to sound and to the full editing at the end. I guess we're going to walk through over the different features that we provide, and then it's going to be clearer.
Absolutely. And for everyone in the audience, I appreciate that some of us are completely technical, so we understand words like diffusion and product polishing and just rendering. Others are newbies into this world. We want to be creative, but we maybe don't know how. We have big ideas, and we really want to be that, user that you're building for, that person who, to your point, has the imagination, but maybe doesn't have the execution. So Alon, how do you approach the tech from the product role perspective?
Yeah. It is challenging, and like this new underlying tech has completely changed over the past 2 years. I think like on one hand, we as a product team, we need to be extremely agile and move extremely fast. The technology, like the pace of advancement it's unbelievable. Like I can go to bed with one model and one functionality and the other. Like the next day, I wake up to a call from our research dude or from this guy actually, saying like, wow, everything has changed. We need to start from scratch. And I'm like, no, okay, great. No, but really, like as a product team, we just need to move extremely fast and adopt all these changes. But at the end, AI is like a buzzword, okay, we all know it, fine. But at the end, there's the user on the other side of the screen, and we need to address their needs and workflows. So we really mapped the different workflows and processes of creative professionals from different industries, marketing departments, advertising agencies, filmmakers, small and big studios, and we really tried to see how LTX Studio can fit into their workflows or actually change the workflows now with AI. So yeah, that was like the exploration phase of LTX Studio, and now we just like keep pushing forward with the needs of our users, and it's more like touching on the visions expansion that we're gonna address. But yeah, that's.
I mean, what I'm hearing you say, it's a user-first platform. Am I right in thinking you have 20,000 users?
Yeah, we released the beta of LTX Studio 2 months ago, and we sent out like more than 20,000.
I mean, that's wild, right? 2 months, 20,000, yeah. But also you're taking on their feedback in real time and really incorporating it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know that you've got some visuals that you want to show our audience just to make sure that they're able to understand exactly what you are presenting and conceptualize it.
Yeah.
Do you want to take them through?
Of course. I have the clicker.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So the journey of LTX Studio, it starts with a prompt. Like that's the main entry point to the platform and the creative process. Like you put in the prompt, it can be a short sentence, a synopsis, or a script, but it has to include a narrative. It's not just describing one shot or one like action. It's actually a complete story. And then the story unfolds in the storyboard view, where you have all the scenes and all the shots. You can then rearrange everything and outline the entire story on this screen. You can also see that this story includes characters, and characters is a huge focus for us on LTX Studio, and for this we have a designated screen for casting, where you can actually cast the characters for the project. You can edit their appearance and their clothing and everything that about their attributes. And again, from the story, you can just use their name and place them anywhere you want, basically. But for us, it's not just about creating the frames. It's also about the flexibility of not committing to one specific decision that you have to make in advance. Nowadays, in traditional productions, you have to hire an actor, and then you commit to this actor. But here, what's new in this AI world, you can just replace the actor after you have everything in place. You can just outline the whole narrative, have the story, and just decide that you want the main character to be a bit older or with different clothing. And that's a magical experience, and we really try to preserve this kind of flexibility for our users. The same level and type of flexibility, it also happens on the scene level, where you have the scene parameters that you can set the location, the weather, the lighting for each scene. All the shots within this scene get the attributes that you set for the scene, and then you can see the entire scene consistent and coherent with this settings that you set. But again, you don't have to commit to one place. You can just prototype different ideas, different locations, and see how it works for you. And that's a very powerful capability in pre-production and earlier stages of the project. Another key element in storytelling is deciding on the visual aesthetic and the technique that you're gonna use for your film or your project. So with LTX Studio, we provide a bunch of different visual styles and aesthetics that you can just, again, change after the fact, not in advance. Nowadays, you have to commit to the type of technique that you choose. If you go with 3D models, you have to work with, I don't know, Maya 3D Max and other softwares in order to create all the content, or 2D hand-drawn. You just have to do it in advance, or live action going out to production. Here you can just iterate and skip between different styles and get all the visuals you want. So we discussed story-level editing and scene-level editing, but huge focus for us at LTX Studio is the shot-level editing. We want to make sure, the creative person who's working with the platform, they have a very specific vision in mind. We learned that on the exploration phase of what we did. So we know that we have to provide this kind of flexibility of making sure that they can actually achieve their visions. So also on a frame level editing and motion level editing, we try to provide as much as flexibility and control that we can. And Zev can tell you we have a lot of things coming up. Stay tuned. And at the end, to tell a complete story and to have a complete video, you have to make sure you have a soundtrack in place.
Let's get out of here.
So Sonia, you mentioned a one-stop shop approach. That's exactly what we're aiming to do here. And again, you have to have the control over the sounds as part of what you're doing, as part of the complete editing. LTX Studio supports narration and sound effects and ambient and background music, and all of it comes together with an auto edit to a complete story that you can just generate and export full video out of LTX Studio. And yeah, that's a one-stop shop experience. So.
And I must say that when I was first approached and I was given the access to LTX Studios, I was skeptical, as one would be, especially with AI, Gen AI, and technology. But I went on to created my whole storyboard, and it really did work. The animation, I was able to change her hair, I was able to change her voice, I was able to change what she was wearing, even the scenery around her, and it made me fall in love with the creation process. And with, I think, the amount of information that's going out, we're losing that love of creation. And so I do think, not because I have to say it, but because I truly believe it, that Visions and LTX Studio are truly changing and shifting the way that we storytell, generally. But you've shared a lot of positives, right? And that's important, because that's why we're here. But can you tell us, what are the core challenges in the creative industry that LTX is actually solving?
Yeah, so I think Visions is all about solving the core challenges that our users are facing. And as we said earlier, we released more than 20,000 codes to users. So we have users using LTX Studio. And we did a bunch of like user research and studies with the waitlist users that got access, with our Discord community that are watching us right now. So, hey Discord, we love you. And with our design partners, we really try to understand their pain points and how they utilize the LTX Studio. What we figured out is that they actually use it for their creative professional work. And we were extremely excited about that. That's what we wanted to achieve. And not surprisingly, most of them use it for pre-production purposes. So Visions is all about streamlining the pre-production use cases using LTX Studio.
And so Visions sounds exciting. It does. It really sounds exciting. What are some other cool things that are coming up?
Well, I think actually the cool things that are coming up we're going to show you like in a bunch of slides. So let's start maybe with LTX Visions, and then I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to tell you a lot about like rendering and stuff.
Would you like the clicker? Or would you like Alon to click?
Let's go first. Let's go over the Visions features, and then Zev will tell you everything about what's next.
Let's go for it.
Cool. So when we map the different pain points that currently like users have in LTX Studio, we addressed the first and most like the earliest thing that they face in their creative process, and that's actually how they initiate a project. Right now, as we said earlier, we take the input and make a short story out of it, but for professional use cases, it doesn't really help. In most cases, those users have, or creative professionals, they have something in mind. They know what they want to achieve. I had a talk with a designer that we partnered with. He said, like, the fact that the AI completes my story is actually distracting me from actually working and fueling my own creativity and moving on with my own storyline. So the first entry point that we're going to add today is starting from scratch. You go shot by shot, scene by scene, and building your narrative by yourself. Again, the entire experience is fueled by AI, so everything is like extremely like fast and easy and iterative process, but starting from scratch is very useful for this need. The other entry point is for more mature phases of the project where you actually have a script or a concept that you know what you want to achieve. It's a detailed one, and you just need something, LTX Studio, to visualize it for you. Okay, that makes the whole process much, much faster and easier. So the second entry point is like visualizing a concept. You can upload your own script or any text you want, and we just try to keep as close as possible to the original input. No reimagining new characters, no adding fancy stuff, trying to avoid like ignoring the details that you provided. That's the second flow that we had. So now we have 3 new entry points to initiate a project in LTX Studio. The second feature that we add today is style reference. We discussed a lot with filmmakers about the need of like applying a very specific look and feel for their projects. We know, we just had a discussion outside with the panelists that are gonna come up soon about the AI look. Now, there is kind of an AI look that you wanna get rid of. It's kind of a stock photography look, the same thing, but with AI. So I think this feature really helps with it. You can just pick any visual language you want and build a visual language for the project that you are working on. So for pitching, for example, you have to sell this visual language as part of the pitch, and being able to just upload any style reference and capture the color schemes, the technique that is used in this reference, it's very useful for these use cases. And if we're talking about pitching, so we added a new feature called Export to Pitch Deck. We realized, like, we analyzed the usage data of our users right now, and we saw that a lot of users actually retain to the platform just to download not even the complete video that is exported out of LTX, but all the resources and assets that they generate along the way. So it can be images and sounds and short clips. They use these things to actually sell their idea and project. So we wanted them to have a very easy way to download everything at once. And in this pitch deck, you have a very clean representation of the storyboard, a mood board with different assets not from the project, but that really helps to convey the idea of the story that you're working on. So that's about pitch deck. And the last feature that we're going to introduce today is the upscale feature. Now, it goes both ways. It's also for pre-production, but also for, like, it's taking us further into the production-ready world. But here for pre-production, we just want to make sure that our users nail each pitch they have. And if they need to show and present their video on a big screen, we want every pixel to be like as sharp as possible. So that's the upscale feature. We're starting with full HD and moving on to 4K and fixing some more things that are happening like on the first generation. I think actually Zeev has some things on this front as well.
Yeah, so guys, listen, like the upscaling part is tricky because I think part of the premise of LTX Studio is that we want to give you a like really low latency experience, right? That you kind of type something and immediately see it. And we already like introduced a bunch of things. You don't need like to wait a lot until video generates, right? So typically when you're going into shot editor, it's going to create like in under 5 seconds like 4 different previews of how the video can evolve from a single frame. But like the initial video you're going to get are going to be kind of relatively low res, and then the kind of enhancing upscaling process is going to happen. In terms of kind of visual fidelity, we have some really kind of crazy thing we're going to show over time. The thing is, it is kind of expensive in terms of GPU power and takes a lot of time, right? So at the moment, we're kind of limiting ourselves to the fact that, okay, if you need to kind of now render a, let's say 5-6 seconds video at kind of high resolution, we want it to be like 2 minutes maximum. We do have a process that runs like, I don't know, like 20 minutes and creates like way more quality, 2 hours, and creates even more quality. And like over time, we're going to discover what users have like this kind of really crazy needs that are starting to go into production territory, and then we'll kind of figure out how to expose it. Some parts of this process can be mapped like into multiple GPUs and parallelize it to a certain degree, and then kind of the rendering time can be reduced. So anyhow, we start to introduce now, we are going to also show what's possible in Discord. You're going to see like what amazing visuals you can get from the system. Some of the stuff we don't actually know how to productize yet, so the running time will make sense, but we're working on it.
And I also want to mention like all these features are actually already in production on the platform, so you can check them out like in the demo stations over here, or if you have access, just LTX.studio. Enjoy.
Can I get the clicker now and show more pixels? Or?
There he goes there.
We'd love to understand what are some other cool things that are coming up before we launch another surprise for you all who have come to support us today.
Okay, so some of the things that are coming next, let's go kind of quickly over them. One of the challenges that we have with AI video generation at the moment that some of you are probably aware of is that if we're starting with the same kind of environment, the generation is going to be there. It's like really hard like to create like this portal system where you're moving from space to space, like even from inside to outside. So a big focus is going to be changed that, right? That you have like a really kind of different environments, you can move between them. And again, initially the quality in order to give you kind of fast previews is going to be kind of low res. Then once you kind of created exactly the transition from one environment to another, you will be able to kind of enhance it and upscale to a high resolution. Another feature that like really should be out, I think it's already like ready, kind of almost ready, is like this concept of variation. I guess some of you are familiar with this concept from images and Midjourney, right, where you can generate a photo and then create like a slight variations on top of it. Same story with the video, right? Like let's say you kind of like this shot, right, like of this, say, ape sitting in the bar, but something weird kind of happens in the end. You'll able to kind of ask the system, listen, just like generate me some kind of variations that can fix some of the things you don't like. Over time, we want to kind of expose you more controls there, what variation actually means, right? Like, so in one of the shots, you're going to see that like a bunch of people kind of running in the background, like kind of really weird shot. So these are going to be like the parameters of this system over time where you will be able kind of to nudge the system to go like, to take the variations into certain direction. Okay, another thing is that at the moment, like the whole work is based on the fact that you are starting with the frame that you generate and then the video kind of runs from there. a lot of times what makes sense to do, and obviously animators are like intimately familiar with it, is to specify the first and last frame of the shot, right? So already have like tools in the system that help you, given like one frame, to move in a certain direction. You can like remove objects, add objects, change them. So what's going to happen in the next stage is that, okay, you have like your first frame, you're changed something, like in this example, you are marking a region, like of like the jaw of the tiger, etc., or the wolf in this example. You're generating last frame, and then in between it just kind of magically happens for you. It's actually like a super fun feature. And then again, there over time as well, you're gonna get some controls over how the bouncing effects are working, how a bracket animation is, in order to kind of have kind of more control over the in-betweening process. That's kind of another example. Like this first last frame can be like pretty wild, meaning you're gonna have like a spaceship, and then you're gonna tweak like the camera, like that I already showed, but also like the change what happens in last frame, and the system is gonna create all the in-betweening for you. And the last thing is about kind of length of the video. So a basic extension was already happened now. I hope, like, if not today, then next week you're going to see that if you have a shot tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Very cool. No, really tomorrow? Like, okay. No, I mean, like, it actually was supposed to be ready for the event. It might, is it? Anyhow.
It's just not in production. It is ready. It is ready.
So VP Engineering isn't here, so we can.
Yeah, but he watched that, so.
So anyhow, like the basic extension is going to be like ready soon. Then you're going to able to kind of extend it a bunch of times. Again, internally, we're able to generate like already by now like pretty long shots, like dozens of seconds, kind of again low res initially, then you kind of upscale it kind of to full res in order to reduce latency. So that's, by the way, like for me, like one of the more exciting things, because once you're giving users longer shots, you're just seeing that people just like start to create like way more fun stuff with the system.
I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a lot that we can play with. That's what I've learned, right? And I don't know how you as a team have done it in the last few months. I'm exhausted listening based on the amount, especially with a new baby. You're sitting there being like, super people, you're doing the work. And actually,
it's the best team in the world. I'm telling you this.
But you know,
wow.
Wait a second. But now let's discuss if you're like the best dad in the world. Last time his baby was sick, he actually didn't come and ask, listen, Alon, what's going on? He told me, listen, like baby's sick and I couldn't find anyone. And do you think I want to be here? That was your answer.
Well, you keep changing your idea the next day. Obviously, VP of product needs a bit of a break, right? He needs to process the information.
Yeah.
The exciting thing that I'm hearing is, and repeatedly you've said it, is that users are really helping you to progress your product forward. And so I guess for everyone and anyone hearing, I love the fact that your product, which is changing the way that we work with tech and work with AI and the way that we produce and storytell, is a user-first experience. And I don't think that many businesses think about the user when they're creating. Normally it's the finances of the funds, but you're completely, constantly saying, we've launched this because you've told us you want it.
Listen, I have to tell you something. Like
Tell me.
For us as filmmakers, no, I'm not kidding. It's like one of the most exciting things just like to see what people create kind of using your stuff. I mean, at some point, like very early in my pixel polishing career, I realized that actually I'm not a creator. And I had a discussion about like in the early days with our CTO, we did our PhD together, and I think both of us agreed that we realized at some point, okay, we're not artists, and none of us is gonna write like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but like we kind of discussed it between ourselves. Like someone actually created like a musical tool, a piano, for Beethoven to write their symphonies on. And for us as the tool makers, it's an incredible source of inspiration to create pianos for you guys.
Well, thank you so much. What a great note. I mean, the exciting thing here is that every time you both talk, I see the sparkle in your eyes, which to me proves that you really believe in your product and your end user, and you are smiling, sitting here, being like, yes, I've gone from PhD to pixel polishing to launching or relaunching another product in front of all of these people. So on that note, to celebrate visions, we have put together a new advert, which you can relate to the first video and movie that you saw. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you for a big round of applause for the team at Lightrix for everything they've done. And I'm going to introduce the video.
Okay. We're done.
And cut. Not my vision. Honestly, I'd rather direct.
Did you say you want to direct? Because I really want to direct.
What if it was way more epic? Like, they should get me to direct.
What if it's a noir? Yeah, I could direct.
What if it's vaporwave, man? Yeah, I could direct.
Now you can be the director you've always wanted to be. LTX Studio creates stunning previs, pitch decks, and style references using AI. Generate 4 video previews in real time, streamlining your visual storytelling process.
Cut.
LTX Studio. Join the waitlist now. Access is being granted daily.
Hosting duties also means you move chairs, so give me 2 seconds. What a wonderful celebration of change, of creativity, and of community. That's what I constantly am hearing, is the community are transforming the change, and we're all going to become creatives at the end of it. And so on that note, we've heard from the people who are building the products. We've heard from the team. I want to hear from the creatives who are using tools like LTX Studios to unlock their creativity. And on that note, I would love it if you can give a big round of applause to our panelists who are going to come and join us, and then we're going to jump into a fireside chat, asking them all the questions that you've actually asked us, especially our friends on Discord, before we start wrapping up for Network and Nibbling. So thank you. Fab, so I am just going to empower you all to introduce yourselves because you do it so much better than I do. So Omar, do you want to kick off?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Omar. I'm an AI filmmaker and image maker. I used to be a creative director in advertising for the last 15 years. For me, it's been a really interesting journey from regular storytelling to really understanding that AI has allowed me to tell stories in a way that has just been impossible with any other technology. And I think it's absolutely fascinating as a creative to be able to be here and see this future. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Hello, my name's Georgia. I am an AI consultant, prompt engineer, and strategist. Sounds quite serious. It wasn't always like that. I actually started my career interviewing grime rappers on YouTube on a channel called SBTV when I was at uni. I did a lot of script writing there, a lot of TV presenting, and I sidelined into AI through script writing. I was working on a few TV shows. I needed a bit of extra money, to be honest, and I applied for a pop culture writing job and ended up being at Microsoft writing the personality of Cortana, and I just became fascinated with the relationship between humans and machines. Google headhunted me, and I launched the Google Assistant in the UK. I wrote the personality for it. So if it likes the Spice Girls or anything like that, or grime music, that was me. And then that job's really evolved. I ended up leaving there, consulting. I've become a prompt engineer now, and I work with huge global brands to just do quite weird and wonderful things using AI, talk about it a lot online, and in real life with you lot. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lois. I'm a creative director at an agency called Phantom. My background is in illustration, filmmaking, and animation. And I found myself at Phantom, which is a tech-driven, creatively focused agency, that if any of you were finding yourself during the Christmas period or during the Valentine's Day creating weird, kind of attractive versions of yourself and putting them and posting them to your friends and family, you have Phantom to thank for that. If you found yourself on Ghosts of Christmas Cards or Be My Boo, you have Phantom to thank for that.
Well, thank you. We've heard so much about LTX Studio, and obviously us being esteemed guests, we got first dibs and early access. Let's be honest, did any of us actually use it? If we did, what's our feedback?
I mean,
jump right
first
in,
of all,
any of you.
so fast. Okay, I am definitely a self-confessed, used to be an analog person, now very much a tech person. I found myself developing and evolving over the last few years, and becoming absolutely fascinated, and actually in the last hour or so, chatting to my fellow panelists, I'm becoming even more fascinated about that. But I think the speed at which you can ideate, generate, put your ideas on paper, that is a genuine gap in the creative process that I've found. It slows things down, it kind of prevents creativity at the heart of it, and essentially I just, to be very human about this, felt more creative while I was using it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree. Is this working? Yeah. I found it really inspiring too. I think we can get into it later, like what people think about AI and creativity, but as I was creating stuff, it was making me think of new ideas. I was impressed with the speed. I use all kinds of AI tools all the time. I'm sure, like, let's say, like, there are other text to video applications available. And I thought it was good. I was impressed.
And Omar, what about yourself?
For me, I think it feels like the missing link, right? So as like someone who's like, I am in the weeds with the wires inside Comfy UI or Mac 1111, and it's fantastic, but I'm basically like code illiterate, so to like have a thing that can basically allow me to go, I have an idea, I want to make it, that's the dream of every creative, to like bridge that gap between ideation and creation, and this has allowed me to do that. And in playing with it, it's also really allowed me to speed up the process of like what I want to make. And what's been really interesting, all public domain, by the way, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could make my own versions of some of these public domain like stories that are lying around. So if anyone wants to see a particular version of Winnie the Pooh, do come and see me. But like, it's absolutely amazing to go, you can take an idea and then just make it. And that for any creative is like the ultimate. So yeah, it's been amazing.
What I love, sorry to interrupt what we said
please,
before,
that's why we're here.
Was the face swap. I don't know if you lot used it. I think, at our heart as humans, we are all kind of narcissists. I think you guys proved that with your Christmas campaign, and we love creating versions of ourselves, and I loved putting my faces and my mates' faces on it and then creating videos. It felt like I was creating memes there and then, so I can see how it's going to change the game.
Yeah. If anybody wants tools to create memes, that's the first step into a lot of these tools, right? Is like, how do you have fun with it? How do you enjoy it as creatives? Even if you're not a creative, how do you just get silly and storyboard and just have a great time? So what I repeatedly am hearing us all say is, you don't have to be a coder or in corporate or like actually understand what you're doing to use it. You just have to have an idea, take it, prompt it, and then see what wonderful things can come out at the end of it. And I love the fact that we keep using the word creative, because I think we're reclaiming it in some way. I mean, Omar, you're a filmmaker. How do tools like LTX Studio actually enable you to deliver or execute on creative boundaries that were somewhat unbelievable or unimaginable or unobtainable even?
Yeah. I think like one of the really interesting things about spearheading like a new kind of filmmaking is not only are you trying to sell a film idea in the normal sense of like, this is what we're going to do with the film, or this is what we're going to do with the script, but you're also trying to sell an entirely new way of making a film. So you have an entirely different job as a director to try to sell more than one part of the idea. So something when, when like even the pitch deck is probably one of my favorite features, which I love all the other technical features, but I'm like, I can make those at home. But the pitch deck is, I can't make that at home. And that is the bridge, because it's great if you're making AI content and you're making AI stuff, but why is anybody else going to buy into it? Why is this idea going to transfer from you? And I think your point about the meme is so, so important, because that's how anything crosses into culture, right? So how do we start doing that stuff? And I think that's the fascinating bit for me.
And when we think about culture and creativity, Lois, can you share a surprising or unexpected way that you've used AI, apart from the principal example that you already shared? And I'm sure that many of us didn't even know that that was you or the business that you're with.
Well, humor is very, very important, I think. But I would say it might not be unexpected. I'd have to ask my audience and my fellow panelists. But personally, one of the best ways I love to use AI is to actually like challenge our own creative ideas. So essentially, I kind of use it to test ideas. I will give it context. I will give it the client. I will give it the idea. I will give it, not the idea, in fact. I will give it the information and the background to it, and I will challenge it to come up with 10 ideas. And those 10 ideas will say to our team, right, well, we're not going to do those 10 ideas. We need to do something completely different. And another way I kind of use it and absolutely love is TextFX, which is the Google text tool. Likewise, I was saying to Omar earlier, outside of creative tools and slides, obviously, I'm a creative, so I'm always in slides decks. My favorite app is, or used to be, the dictionary app. Now I find myself using ChatGPT and TextFX to challenge my creative writing, to figure out that word that's in the back of my mind, that word that means that other thing, but it's not quite the exact word that I mean. And it just fills the gap, like as Omar said, it just fills that kind of, just the extra bit of thinking that I require.
Georgia, what's the biggest AI myth that you've busted in your creative journey? Especially given that your journey hasn't necessarily been linear. Like you started off saying that you used to be, with SBTV and do grime videos and production, and now you're creating personalities, which honestly didn't even cross my mind until I met you last week on Zoom, and I was like, yeah, there is someone who creates the personalities, but for some reason you don't even think that that's a person, right? You just think that's tech.
Yeah, I do a bit of personality now, but I kind of do prompt engineering and consultancy and help other people to create crazy characters like the ones that we've seen and more and beyond, and use the tools and how do you break it down. But if you're talking about myths, I suppose the first one was that like AI was boring or something. When I started at Microsoft in 2016, so I've been in AI for a long time, it was like my dirty little secret almost. I was on the radio, I was with Beats One on the radio, and then I was like doing very simple coding for Microsoft, and I didn't want to tell anyone. And I think, we mentioned creativity a lot tonight. I think the idea that AI is going to kill creativity, I think that's a big one. I'm sure it's all crossed our minds here at some point, that like, oh, it's coming from my job, like, whoa. I always say, like, AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use it will. I also think, I genuinely mean it, when I was using this product, it made me feel really inspired. I was like, oh, like, let me change this, let me change that. I was helping out some people who were talking about music and AI the other day, and we were talking about like how technology has changed music, and that's like just a good example. Like, where would hip hop be without sampling, or where would house music be without the synthesizer? And I think when a new technology comes along, it's scary. Like, think about how people felt when the telephone came along, the radio, the TV, and I get it. Nothing has ever advanced at this exponential pace before. I was saying the other day, I was looking at some stats that if air travel had advanced at the same rate as AI, we'd be able to get from London to New York in like 15 minutes. So it is particularly terrifying, and I don't want to be naively optimistic or on the wrong side of history, but as a creative person that started at the beginning of YouTube and couldn't edit a video, it's really exciting.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's so much that you've unpacked there, but I guess all of you are touched on a common theme, which is the skills that you're building. The skills that you didn't even know you had, right? When I got access to the studio, I didn't even know I had skills of, let's say, basic things like writing a prompt. And yet, prompt's a word that keeps coming up, especially with ChatGPT, and you were like, I don't know what a prompt is. I'm not even sure what to say. As a creative, do I know what a prompt is? And you went to the prompt, and then something came out on screen, and you're like, hey, I didn't know I had so much control over what creativity looks like. I didn't know there were so many versions of what good looks like. And, and I say that for the layperson in the room because as a show of hands, people here are storytellers and business folks, and actually you're just here because you showed up, but hopefully you're going to learn something, and then you're going to show up on the studio and take something away. But going back to that skill set, it would be wrong of us not to talk about skill set whilst we're here, right? You've talked about some of the myths, you talked about some of the fears. What is the skill set for the next generation of successful creatives, and what are the barriers being broken down with a tech like LTX Studio? And Omar, maybe I'll come to you, if that's okay first, and then come to the ladies here.
Sure. I mean, I think like some of the things that are the barriers that are going to be removed are the things that basically just allow the idea to transfer from. I think one of the really interesting things as a creative has been like when you come up with an idea, you basically have to like then try to convince rooms full of people before you can then see it into reality. And I think if you're creative, you know my pain as well. Like, how many ideas have like died on the cutting room floor? How many ideas have died in presentations and stuff? Whereas now with tools like AI tools and especially LTX, like you can make things and see things as a creative before any other part of the process. So I think like that is probably the most important bit for me, that really, when you think about like what things are people going to have to learn and what things are people going to have to do, I think it's going to have to be like way more focused on creativity, because creativity is the thing that the machine can't do. We still need to input that into a machine, just like numbers into a calculator almost. Yeah.
And before I go to our other panelists, and I love for you to even think about the question, how does one learn creativity? Because I guess, especially growing up in the English schooling system, for many of us who kind of went through that process, you were either maths or you were creative. You weren't really allowed to be both, you know what I mean? As if there was kind of two different sections going on. And so you talk about the fact that we're learning creativity, but give me the simplest
Yeah,
scene.
honestly, like the two things that you need, like legit, like honestly, like don't pay a consultant, like just listen to these two words. Is playfulness and curiosity. Like curiosity to like keep going, oh, I wonder how far this string will go if I keep pulling it. And that's the reason why I'm here. Like I'm literally sat here because I was like, oh, I wonder how far this AI string will go. And the other thing is absolute playfulness. There is no such thing as being wrong. And I mean, there was before when it was on someone else's like dime, but like because AI doesn't allow you to like, you can fail faster than ever before. And if you want to fail, fantastic, but it's about being playful enough to like go, oh, I'll just keep continuing. And there's no wrong thing about it. So I think that is the real, like those two things unlock creativity.
Thank you. And Lois, what do you think to all the discussion we're having? I guess one is about the skills, and two is the barriers, but three is how do you even unlock that creativity? And I guess I'd love to hear action points. You know, what's the one thing that everyone can take away when they want to go and unlock their creativity?
Yeah, well, I think definitely for the next generation. I mean, first of all, I mean they've got it pretty good. I think, to be honest, a lot of those barriers are being broken down, and that's amazing. Like one of the things that's so incredible about a software like this and the other softwares that Lightrix has made is like it is democratizing filmmaking. Like it is making, you know, sort of everyday folk, whether or not they've been to film school or animation school or art school or any sort of traditional creative routes into the industry, they can have creativity at their fingertips. They can learn it as they go. You know, we are all, you know, creativity is not made in a vacuum. Like art imitates life, and everybody has the capacity to be creative, and everybody has the capacity to tell a story. You just have to have access to the tools to do that. And in a software like LTX, where you can, you know, write, see, prototype, change, edit, change the shots, you can learn literally filmmaking in the tool itself. You know, everybody watches films, everybody watches TV, everybody plays games. Well, not everybody, but maybe everybody does. Everyone should. People are familiar with what they see. They have that in their minds. They understand it. They intrinsically understand it. And it's just a case of having access to the tools to learn that and to be able to realize your stories as well. And so that, I think, would be the main answer.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of cultivating creativity, first of all, I'd say all humans are creative, even the most pixel polishing of us. We all need each other. You know, music is essentially math at its core. And I don't want to go too woo-woo and off-piece, but like, I'm just such a big fan of thinking about how creativity comes into like your personal world. And I love that book, The Artist's Way. I don't know how many of you. And I like run courses with my friends where we work through it. And I think fundamentally it just comes down to playing, doing something for fun. Like if we've worked in the creative industry, sometimes it becomes laborious, and then you take a step away and you're like, wow, this is actually really fun. So like doing something that you're not gonna have to get paid for, like learning Drake songs on the keyboard terribly, which is like what I do. Something silly that has nothing to do with like what you're actually doing. In terms of skill set for the future, I think, you know, we're all rapidly learning as fast as possible how to become prompt engineers, aren't we? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you said that you were on LTX and using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use as a thesaurus, because we're all having to learn how to be very direct about what it is we want. As a British person, it's very hard to ask for what you want directly. Let's be real.
You don't say please and thank you to ChatGPT. Yeah, like, please, can you do this for me? Thank you so much. I'm sorry to inconvenience you.
If you wouldn't possibly
you might get better results if you say that. Treat it with some respect.
Yeah, and you know, if you wouldn't possibly mind maybe doing that. And I'm sure at work we've all encountered like asking for something without actually asking for it. And my other colleagues not from Britain have been like, how did you just get that person to do what? So I think that actually that's a skill. I'm sure we've worked with clients. They don't know what they want. They want something that looks a bit like that. I've had loads of meetings with people, they want to do something with AI, they don't really know. So I think it comes down to drilling down on what you want, being able to explain it very well, which is where communication, which is essentially a human skill, and using your words properly is going to be really important. So yeah, that would be my answer, I think. Yeah, just being very, very clear, succinct, and being able to be direct in your communication, I suppose, and being able to explain yourself properly. Oh, and that was it. I lost my train of thought. Having an opinion, because AI can't have an opinion on stuff, and so I think like as AIs take over, you know, we're seeing it loads. We're talking to machines loads more. Having an opinion on things is going to become like the human trait that I think is going to be really valuable.
So a couple of things we've picked up, especially with the panel, is definitely keep unlocking your curiosity, whatever that means. And I think you've mentioned to us, even if you go pick up a random hobby, how are you learning those skills? How are you building on top of it? And how are you making yourself bolder and braver and more confident? Don't be afraid to communicate what you're doing, right or wrong. Actually, there's no such thing as right or wrong anymore. It's very much subjective. But go and present to another person what you are creating, what you are showcasing, what's, you know, your kind of vision, pun intended, so that we can be in a position where we are supporting the next generation of technology and transformations. But most importantly, go and get your hands dirty, is what I'm hearing you say. If you don't know how to do something, actually, you have LTX Studio, right? And it's not necessarily a plug, even though that's why we're here. It's the fact that they're giving you an opportunity to go and become that creative that you wish you were when you were younger, create your own image, storyboard, and direct, in a space where actually there's a lot of noise and there's not a lot of content. And what we're saying is substance is really key. But one thing that was touched on, and I think is an ongoing theme, not just the power of community and customer, but also critical analysis, right? Really think about what you're creating, why you're creating it, what good looks like, and don't be afraid to analyze your own version of creativity. On that note, I am going to kindly ask you all to give a big round of applause to our panelists. And as we actually, for some reason, have come to the end of our show, which honestly, I'm looking at the timer being like, time goes so fast when you're having fun and when you're talking about technology, the pace of evolution. I just want to cover a few things that I've learned. One is that, by all means, Lightricks are changing the way that we're showing up as creatives. But a big part of showing up as a creative is being brave enough to do the work yourself. So that could be going, prompting, learning, listening, and then leveling yourself up, but sharing it with a wider community. A lot of our influences come from and go back into pop culture. So why don't you use your hobbies and your passion projects to actually help you lead that design and make a difference? But most importantly, stay playful. We've seen it even with the team at Lightricks. They stayed playful within one, you know, amongst each other, but also with the products they're building, and they brought users into that journey, which ultimately is a reason why we're here. And obviously, we said there was a surprise for you, everyone who's here, but also everyone who is watching online. And that is that everyone gets access to LTX. Woo! Why? Because we want you to be your own creatives. We want you to reclaim that word, but we also want you to be in a position where you can actually help us build the next stage of what we're building by giving back your feedback and saying, this is what's missing and this is what doesn't really work, but this is what we need you to fix because we're the ones who are going to use it at the end of the day. So on that note, I appreciate that, like I said at the beginning, you all have invested your time. I appreciate that you're here to live, learn, and enjoy. So please do stay for network and nibbling. I know that we have a lot of topics to cover, from polishing pixels to being playful. That's kind of the summary in one tagline, right? And I would be very grateful if we can give a big round of applause to everyone who's come on stage, and most importantly, the teams, not just the production team, but also the Lightricks team and the team in the background that weren't able to make it today who have made this possible. So thank you.